We'll call the meeting to order and have roll call, please.
Dyke.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Newcomer.
Here.
Winteringer.
Here.
Agenda item 2, the reading of the district mission statement by Vice President Walker.
Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower students and staff in order to maximize learning.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes or corrections, Dr. Cox?
A slight correction on the very last page, under the transfers. Mary Cross was going from a special education position to Title I. Lauren Robbins is going from the early childhood special ed, the ECSE, to a special ed job.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Roll call vote, please.
Walker.
Yes.
Frisbee.
Yes.
Newcomer.
Yes.
Winteringer.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 4, welcome the visitors and have public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, comments by board members and superintendent, and we'll begin with Dr. Cox.
Thank you. First and foremost, school board election is tomorrow, so please get out and vote. Polls open at noon, close at 8 o'clock, and we would love to see a big turnout. Homecoming is next week. Head to our website and you can see detailed information as to what's taking place, the events and the activities. And one of those will be a Comet Hall of Fame induction, which will take place next Saturday. The Charles City Community Excellence in Education Foundation, the Booster Club, and the Performing Arts Club all have joined forces to sponsor a Comet Hall of Fame event. Inductees will serve as the grand marshals of the parade and will be introduced at the game on Friday night. There's a tailgate in the middle school parking lot prior to the game, and then an induction brunch on Saturday morning. Tickets are on sale in the superintendent's office.
Thank you. Any other comments by board members this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to the annual meeting, affidavits of depository.
I handed out statements showing our bank balances at year end. At June 30, we had almost 9 million at CUS Bank in quite a few different accounts. The smaller accounts are scholarship accounts that we use to pay interest on, interest from the principal goes there to pay scholarships. We also have a report from Bankers Trust. That's where we have our debt service, short-term funds that we're gonna repay our debt with. And then lastly, we have a report from ISJIT, and that was mainly used to collect food service deposits in prior year. In fiscal year 2018, we plan to quit using that account and go to the new school pay type of collection for deposits.
Okay, this is just an informational item, so we will note in the minutes that Terry gave us that brief summary. Agenda item 7, the naming of school depository for 2017-18.
This is just, these amounts aren't what we're planning on having on deposit. They're higher than what we need, but it's one of those, procedural requirements that the accounting rules dictate, that we have to set depository and their limits, and we can't exceed those limits.
Terry, remind us again, what is the deciding factors in how the money is divided between the deposits?
Well, we bid out our main bank where, you know, we keep our majority of funds. Bankers Trust, that was dictated when we, got the loan, the debt issuance for the middle school. And the other ones are just set in case we were to move one of the accounts. You know, our expectation isn't that we're gonna move from CWest Bank, you know, unless, I think it was probably 5 years ago that we went there. And we've been satisfied with, their service and
Motion to approve the list of depository banks and amounts as listed for the 2017 and 2018.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the list of depository banks and amounts for, as listed for 17-18. Any other comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Bincumber,
Yes.
Wittering,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 8, the certified annual report for 16-17.
Okay, in the exhibits, there are reports right from the certified annual report, and the numbers are really small and there's a lot of them, so I've summarized the high points in a PowerPoint like I normally do, and if there's any other questions, getting more into the detail, be sure to let me know, call me tomorrow. But starting with the balance sheet, in the balance sheet we have, well, first off, the certified annual report summarizes all the funds. The largest of our funds is the general fund, so that's where I'm gonna spend most of my time. These are unaudited numbers. Our audit does come in October, and then any adjustments that they might suggest we'll let you know. Okay, so on the balance sheet in the general fund, the unassigned fund balance, which is kind of the summary of the revenue and expenses for the year, get accumulated. So the net effect for the year in the unassigned fund balance was a decrease of 4.7%. This is related to cash. And so we'll talk about the unspent balance and modify or supplemental amounts that the state gives us that aren't factored into the unassigned fund balance. But the fund balance is directly affected by the cash reserve, but also the relationship between revenue and expenses. And in fiscal year 2017, our expenses increased 6.9%, while our revenue increased 2.2%. The district's enrollment declined 18 students. However, that decrease won't be reflected in our financial statements until next year, since we're always funded for the previous year enrollment. Next, I have a line graph which shows for the last 12 years where the unassigned, unrestricted fund balance has been. Right now, we're at $4.7 million, or $1.7 million, which is a $4.7 million, or 4.7% decrease, excuse me. So you can just kind of see that the unassigned, unrestricted fund balance jumps around quite a bit. And if you're wondering, in fiscal year 2010, that was the year the state withheld 10% at the end of the year of their money, which is a direct cash effect. and that's why that 1 year was so low. Next, I have our 2017 unspent balance. Now, that takes into account our spending authority that we may get where there's no cash given to us, but we get spending authority. Right now, we're at $4.3 million. So you can see that this line is a lot smoother. You know, it'll fluctuate some, hopefully not a lot from year to year, but we do have adequate unspent balance. So we look good here. The 2016-17 revenues. Okay, so revenues increased 2.2%, and to break that down into categories of funding, our local property tax decreased 2%. We did decrease our property tax rate from previous year to last year, from $13.61 per thousand to $12.93 per thousand. Also, in the tuition and other local sources, that's a 20% decrease. However, there was a one-time increase in fiscal year 16 for the Mid-American rebate, which exaggerates that 20% decrease. Also, the state funding source increased by 0.6%, mainly due to the teacher leadership and compensation funding that we received new in fiscal year 2017. That was $478,000. Federal sources were about even, a 0.6% decrease, and under our miscellaneous income, we had a huge increase due to a one-time funding in fiscal year 17 for the laptops that we sold. So this illustrates that our local and state funding makes up 90% of our revenue. So when we talk about the other items, small portion comes from federal tuition and other. So again, if you look at the state sources, you can see there is an increase from 16 to 17, and again, that's the teacher leadership money. Fiscal year 17 expenses increased 1.2 million. We had salary and benefits increase 4.6 and 5.6% respectively. But a lot of that, we had contract negotiations. Every year we have contract negotiations, and between fiscal year 16 and 17, we negotiated a 3.4% package increase. And then if you factor in the additional people that we were funding through TLC, that's why we have such a large increase in salary and benefits. In other expenses, the board made the decision to move some of the PEPAL expenses we had paid previously to the general fund. And we also used part of our carryover balances in like ISL. We always, the board chooses to be able to carry over that for the buildings to use in following years. And here you can see a bar graph for the general fund expenses. The salary and benefits make up 81.8% of our total expenses of 18.1 million. This one, you'll remember, is an analysis that I give you every month. This comparison is a little bit different because it compares to our budget rather than comparing to previous year revenue and expenses. So our general fund revenue was 1.1% above projected, so pretty close to our projected, and our expenses were 3.8% under projection. Now, in our budget, we do budget for carryover that the state says we have to carry over for certain purposes. We may receive the money, but we haven't used it yet. So I'm adding that to our budget. And our categorical money, or our carryover of restricted use money, did decrease from 1.1 million to 955,000. So part of the expenses that we had in fiscal year 17 were that use of previous year carryover. Our solvency ratio decreased from 10.2% to 9.5%, which is still within our target. Now that was all general fund analysis. Now I'm gonna speak briefly about the other funds that we have. In our sales tax capital debt service fund, in that $3,478,000, there is 2.8 million of that is for facility projects that we can use in, it's kind of that cushion, because some years we want to start a project early, so we always need that cash balance. 279,000 of that is in our debt service fund, which is set aside for the short-term debt repayment that we have. Capital projects, that was middle school addition money. We've used all of the debt issuance that we had, so there's no balance at year end. Now we're just repaying that debt through our annual sales tax and PEPAL allowance. The management fund and the student activity fund just showed slight increase. They stay pretty stable. In our proprietary funds, our nutrition fund, there was a 30% increase. This excludes this GASB 68 entry, which is just booking our part of the IPER's liability. So excluding that, there was a 30% increase. This includes a receivable from Taher at year end for the profit guarantee in the contract of $28,000. So so that increased 30%, and our health and flex funds increased 38%. That's again, I talk about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's a result of, we are self-funded, we haven't had to pay the claims. However, there's a point where we don't want to collect more and more and make that increase. So that's why in fiscal year 18, we chose to decrease the premiums for single and family insurance below the suggested rate that Wellmark.
That makes sense to me, because it's almost a reward for being healthy.
Yeah, and we're keeping the result of our better health.
Yes,
We're at least
yes,
better than
yeah.
what
Yeah.
Wellmark actuaries were predicting.
So hopefully we'll be able to possibly offer that again, then.
Yeah,
That's outstanding.
yeah. And then this page just shows, management fund as compared to our budget for the year. This is, again, one of those reports that I give you monthly, but it's the final report for, fiscal year 18. The PEPAL and the, sales tax fund, you know, you can look at that, it's kind of small print, but we had revenue of 2.5 million, but we spent 6 million. So I'm gonna just bring that up because as we all know, we used part of our cash balance at year end to fund part of our middle school addition. In addition to that, we paid for Comet Drive, we paid for the athletic complex land purchase, we used up the FFA monies that were given to us for that building, and also completed our annual maintenance projects. The only project at year end that we hadn't finished is the transportation center. That one we're still paying on. So that's why our balance is decreasing, as we've been using what we've carried over. In the food service, revenue and expenses are both more than our budget estimate. So we collected more in food service, but we also spent more. And in our health fund, we were less than projected. We actually, well, we collected more, but spent less. So, and that is it.
Can you
Questions?
go back a couple of slides? Keep going. This one, go back. The solvency ratio comparison. You made a comment that we dropped from 10.22% to 9.53%, and we're still within our acceptable range.
Which is.
What is our acceptable range?
You know,
5 to 15?
5 to 15%.
That's quite a spread,
Mhm.
but we're still in the middle.
Right,
Okay. That part wasn't said earlier,
yeah,
and depending upon how this gets put together for the TV audience and whatnot, I wanted to just verify what is the acceptable range, and we're still right in the middle of that target ratio, so thank you.
yep.
One other question, I think back even further, you had a figure of like 81%, there we go.
No.
81.8% of the general fund is salaries and benefits. Seems like that number is, is that percentage down from what it had been? Wonder
Yeah.
why?
You know, it's right always at the 81%. It might have been 82, you know,
Okay.
just slightly above, but it always,
I noticed a change
maintains
in.
right in that range,
Yeah,
80
okay.
to 82%.
All right, yeah, I
And-
just wanted to look at that slide again to see if it said salaries and benefits or just salaries. Okay, thank you.
So on a statewide basis, and I know I should have asked you earlier, putting you on the spot, since I didn't, is that 81 to 82%, is that fairly common for schools?
Yeah,
Right in that,
yeah.
that range is
Yeah.
where most districts are, yes?
Mhm.
Okay.
You'll find it maybe 77, 78% on a lower side.
Right.
Maybe 84 on a high side.
Yep.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, always
Thank you, good job.
excellent.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the, back up here.
Certified.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2016-17 certified annual report as submitted.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 16-17 certified annual report as submitted. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, the motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 9, the 16-17 special education supplement.
As another report that we have to submit at year end, besides the certified annual report, is our special education supplement. And that just it's a special calculation for determining special ed deficit at year, or positive. You can also be a positive balance at year end.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. We can request supplemental growth, supplemental state aid for the special education deficit, but the only way we can do that is if the board requests it. And that's what this motion recommends, is to request that supplemental amount for our deficit. The amount this year of $577,407 is up 169% from
Wow.
previous year. Previous year was 214,648. In looking at the calculation, the majority of it, because all of the areas are gonna fluctuate some, but the majority of that increase is in the aid wages and benefits.
We had a greater need for additional, is that what,
Yeah, more hours.
It's
As-
about 14 more positions that we
okay,
ended up
thank you
hiring.
for putting a number on that, so
Yeah.
that it puts it in perspective. It's not like we gave anybody big raises, it's
No.
because we needed additional. And this is obviously an area we have very little control over.
As required by IEPs.
Exactly.
And our own efforts to really put our students with special needs into the general
Streamline
education
it.
curriculum
Thank you.
as much as possible,
Thank you for clarifying.
and that's come at a cost.
And did we have some growth in the number of students in special ed, or maybe things shifted with the need that they have?
Not a huge growth, it's just been a growth in some need areas that required additional adult support.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I move to request supplemental state aid in the amount of $577,407.08 for the fiscal year 2017 negative special education balance.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to request supplemental state aid for fiscal year 17 negative special education balance. Any questions or additional comments? Roll call vote, please.
Wintering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes.
Maycumber?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. We'll move on to the regular meeting, and agenda item 10, have the oath of office for our student board member. We have Phelan with us this evening, and we'll let Mrs. O'Brien administer the oath.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of student board member in the Charles City Community School District as now or hereafter required by law? If so, say I do. Congratulations.
Yay.
Hopefully one of those 300 pictures turned out.
This one?
As a reminder, Fallon serves from this meeting all the way through the last regular meeting in May, and she serves at open board meetings, and she is the voice of the student body. So welcome, Fallon.
Thank you.
Welcome, congratulations.
Moving on to agenda item 11, the Orange Frog presentation. You can tell
You may have
we're
noticed a
all
little orange
decked out.
here. Yeah, so at opening day, it was, a comment was made that the board doesn't know much about Orange Frog. Orange Frog was part of the superintendent's professional development plan last year, so you receive periodic updates. We have Brittany Molstead, Scotty Hagensick, and Aaron Lyman here today. 3 district employees who are all trainers and do all of our training internally, and they will share just a small portion about what the Orange Frog Advantage is with you. So, ladies,
We're not getting the 8 hours, right?
you are not.
No, you are, you don't have to.
Oh, no.
We're already happy.
Thank you.
Well, again, I'm Brittany, and I'm an instructional coach for our district.
I'm Scotty. I'm our 3rd through 6th grade school counselor.
And I'm Erin, and I teach 5th and 6th grade reading.
Okay, so in front of you, you will see that you've each gotten like a little Orange Frog handout. That is one of the handouts that everybody receives at our workshops. And it just gives you a little bit of a brief overview, some vocabulary that we've gone over. That's just for you to scan on your own time if you're interested in some of the things that we cover. Just a little bit of a background on the timeline of how this all happened. Last June, the teacher leadership team and the admin team were together to get trained by, I'm going to forget his name, Joel Peterson, the superintendent down in
Eldon, Iowa.
Eldon,
Cardinal,
yeah.
Cardinal Community School District.
Thank you.
Next
Yep.
to Ottumwa.
And so we were trained at that point, and then after that, we kind of got moving, and we had word from Dr. Cox that he wanted more of us to get trained, and so we were 3 of the people that asked for that opportunity and got to go out to West Virginia. And then in March, we started workshops with our entire district, and we just really finished almost everybody here in August, except for a few little stragglers that maybe came in the very end. But for the most part, our entire district is now trained. Thanks. So you might be wondering what exactly is Orange Frog if you've only been following on Twitter and seen a few little bits and pieces. But basically, Orange Frog is based on positive psychology research done by Sean Acor. He's a researcher. He's an author of the Orange Frog Parable that everybody got to read before the workshop. And he also is the author of The Happiness Advantage. That's an awesome orange book that you can pick up on Amazon if you're interested in reading more. One of the quotes on his website says that this workshop has been credited with raising engagement scores, increasing levels of optimism and well-being, reducing stress, and producing record-breaking results. So basically, happiness equals engagement. And so that's really what we want for our district employees. We want them to be engaged in the work so they can kind of spread that positivity to the kids can be engaged, and ultimately we're seeing more student success.
Okay, so a few words that you might hear because of Orange Frog. This is the book, The Orange Frog, the Parable. A few of you may have read it already. But within this book, there are 4 ponds that 4 different frogs live in. So in pond 1, Bull lives there, and Bull is a workaholic. All he does is works, and he feels that everything he does matters, nothing he thinks matters. So nothing matters to him as far as what he thinks, but everything he does matters a whole lot. In pond 2, Misty lives there, and Misty likes to have a lot of fun. She likes to party a lot. And she feels that nothing she thinks matters and nothing she does matters. I'm sorry, what she thinks matters a lot, but what she does doesn't really matter. And then in pond 3, we have Plop. And so Plop might be a word that you hear, because Plop feels like nothing really matters to me. And he doesn't think that anything matters. What he does doesn't matter, what he thinks doesn't matter. He's literally a Plop. And then in pond 4, we have Spark. And Spark feels like everything he does matters, everything he thinks matters, and he's awfully orange. Plop is really green, by the way. Spark is orange because he feels that he really matters. He has a very positive mindset. So we look at the choice. He simply makes the choice to be happy. And happiness is all about choices. So those are some of the words that you may hear that are Orange Frog words.
Has anyone here seen a sign that looks like this before? Where do you usually see them at?
Telephone poles.
Telephone poles, yep.
Yes,
Grocery store?
Grocery stores.
Store, bulletin boards at places, yeah.
Yep, they're pretty common. How do you feel when you start reading about that poster?
Sad.
Yeah. Who are you sad for?
The dog and the owner.
The dog and the family?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How would you feel if you saw this sign and it started out with the reward of $200 and then you noticed that it said in a couple weeks it's $500? Some people are like, I want to find that dog.
But not right away. I'll
Maybe they'll keep increasing it.
Hang on to it a few weeks.
hold on to it for a couple of weeks
This dog
before
could
it,
turn into an investment.
yeah, because the price is going up,
Uh-huh.
right? Okay.
What is your assumption, though, when you see that the reward has increased?
They really want the dog back.
They really want the dog back. It's still missing, right? So we see sad and we know, or we feel sad and we notice that that dog is still missing. And a lot of times, do we hear what happened to the dog?
No.
No.
No, and we're kind of left wondering, did they ever make it back or probably not? We never really know. But how many people have seen a sign like this one?
Never.
Nope,
Never.
never.
We just don't see those. How come?
Either we haven't set protocol to have people say the happy ending, or people are too involved in their happy ending to share it.
And they never found them.
Or do we not have the happy endings?
Those are all good points.
And anymore, you see those more on Facebook than you do in the grocery store or on the
Yeah.
bulletin boards
That's
that
right.
we were talking about earlier.
But
So,
Yeah.
on Facebook, you see this.
Does it take more energy to
Yes.
actually go to the grocery store and print new flyers and post them and actually put the energy and time into doing that?
A
yes.
lot of effort. Yeah.
How do you guys feel when you see this one, though, compared to the first sign?
Relieved.
Good.
Well, there's a smiley face on it, so yeah, it definitely makes
You
it
can't help but
happy.
smile, right? So we feel relieved. We feel excited for that family. We feel positive. They made it home. There's a lot of positive emotions that we feel when we see that sign. So one of the outcomes of our workshop is that we want to publish the good news, is that there are great things happening in Charles City with our staff members, our families, and our kids. But if we don't talk about them and if we don't put the energy into letting people know about those exciting things, we never really know if the dog made it home. So our big goal is to let people know there are great things happening. Let's take the time and energy to focus on them. So I know a lot of you have your phones or your computers with you, and we would just like you to take just like 30 seconds to share some good news, it can be about anything, with someone that maybe doesn't expect to hear from you right now. So it can be a family member, a friend, anybody. So we'll just give you like 30 seconds to do that.
Okay, while you guys are finishing that up, keep on going, just, lend a little listening ear. Back in 2013, Forbes and Gallup published a study that was worldwide study on 230,000 people and asked them if they were happy in their workplace and what they were doing. And what they found was that 63% of people were not happy, 24% were actively unhappy, and only 13% were actually happy in their workplace. And so as you can see the little bit of the canoe and you can see the little bit of orange in the front of those happy people spreading just a tiny bit, that's really the goal for our district and why it's so important. There are oftentimes people that are just really not engaged in their work and really not happy to be there. So our goal is really to spread that orange and make it so people want to come to work and are excited and engaged and happy to be working with our students.
So throughout the 8-hour workshop, we actually expect all of the participants to take away these 3 core ideas. So we specifically want them to focus on these things. First of all, in story, Spark showed us that positive outliers have a difficult time. it's very hard for them to be positive and not have support. So our job is to help make those positive outliers feel comfortable and to help them along the way. Spark also showed us that happiness is a choice. When he chose to be happy, he was green, and he was happy. He chose to do those things. When Misty started doing things that made her happy, she started to turn orange. So it's contagious. Happiness is contagious, and it's a choice. And we have to create space for positive emotions. So back to the little activity Scotty had you do. Did anyone get a response yet? Okay, hopefully you will before the end of the night. When we did this activity in Virginia, did you get something?
I did, yeah.
Awesome. When we did this activity in Virginia, I had sent a message to one of my best friends from high school who I hadn't talked to for quite a while. And her first response to me was, "Is everything okay?" And that's a lot of times what you get if you haven't talked to somebody in a long time. And by the end of our conversation, she simply said, "You really made my day." And so she was feeling good, I was feeling good. We have to make space for that positive emotion. If we don't make space to do that now, we won't do it. We'll forget, "Oh, I'll do it later." But then we never come back to actually do it. So we need to find ways to create space for that positive emotion.
Erin mentioned one of our goals is to have all the participants leave with the idea that positive outliers need to be embraced. And sticking out and doing something different than the normal status quo or challenging ideas and the way things are always done can be really difficult. That can be uncomfortable and awkward, but that's what leaders do. And leaders do bring about change and talk about, what if we did it this way? Or what if we created space for positive emotions at our meeting? So they challenge a lot of our perceptions of the way things have to be done. So one of our other goals is to embrace those outliers and learn from those leaders and ask, what is it about them that makes them so engaged in their work? What helps them be so successful and find such enjoyment and passion in what they do every day? So our major goal is to shift our average of what we believe is normal and expected and bring the average up as we learn from those leaders, which helps us create ultimately a new culture too, at every day at our classrooms and in our buildings, that as we shift that average, we create essentially a new culture.
So there are 5 tactics, they're called the Happiness Advantage tactics, that actually are supposed to make you happier. And so at our workshop, everybody leaves with an action plan with one of these tactics that they have chosen that's best suited to them. So they either choose to share 3 gratitudes a day, do the doubler, which is writing a really happy, positive memory down each day, doing a random act of kindness, and actually we say the word conscious act of kindness because it's not something like just holding a door for somebody, but it's something that's really pre-thought. And then meditation is another one, and Fun 15 is working out and doing some sort of physical activity each day. And they each get an idea, they plan it, and then they leave our workshop with an action plan for 21 days. They have an accountability partner, and so we get them on their way to happiness right as they leave our workshop.
So if you're on Twitter, you can follow us with our hashtag #WeAreHappyCC. And if you have been following us, you've probably seen some of these pictures. These are just some pictures of each of our buildings within the district and the fun that they've had. So I'll just flip through them so you can look and see what kinds of things we've done. Notice the smiles on their faces.
And then one last thought before we did any questions was that information alone and having all these figures and this research in front of you is not enough to just cause change. So we talk a lot at the workshop that information leads to transformation because of a choice that you make. So every person learns about how they can make a choice for positive change in their life at an individual level, and then bring what they've learned to their teams and their grade level meetings and their colleagues, which ultimately brings it to the next level of shifting an entire building, an entire district. And I think we had time for questions as well.
Are you starting to see the change in students through this?
Some of the really awesome things that we've been able to do is I know at the high school they've had a small group of kids read the Orange Frog parable. I have the opportunity to teach an Orange Frog class to a group of 7th graders this year. Right now I have a class of 18, so they have already started on projects on how to share happiness throughout the community. But I also think that you can see, I see it in our teachers for sure. I mean, it's very evident in that, and I believe that it's trickling down. But that's what I've seen.
It's a conscious thing. I mean, when even in our conversations as teachers, we'll be like, "That's a very orange comment. I like that," and it really is contagious. And we're just conscious of making sure that we try and stay more positive, and in anything that we discuss.
Do you foresee anything that we're going to have to do as a district to continue to nurture this to grow? That we'll have to continue either additional training or renewing, something like that,
Revisiting every year, or?
we as a board can look forward to you coming to us with something, or request or something, so that this keeps fresh.
One of the things that we plan to do this year is we plan to continue meeting as a team, and we want to try and encourage other staff members to join the team and create an action plan. So then we do have steps to look forward to and move towards creating a more positive culture.
Because we've all been to those conferences where you come back and you're just so energized. We do that every year when we go down to school board convention. And that, after a few months, you just wish you could re-energize again, because it does seem to fade.
We've actually already had teachers asking, can we
Good.
do something again?
Yes,
So.
yes.
Yeah, and we've talked just briefly about in our action plan how we want to have like mini workshops or just, like you said, like little energizers throughout the year.
Well, I know we would definitely encourage you to please keep it going.
Absolutely.
Keep the blossoms, keep blooming.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting component to what we have going on with our staff here. Besides being a great school district to work and teach in, to have a place where this is the culture to spread happiness or choose to be happy and spread that, I think is a great thing. And I think I was exchanging some Twitter comments back and forth with a couple of you. I see that Com Systems is hiring happy people. I mean, you could be the catalyst for the whole community here, and so yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Anything else?
No.
I want to thank you. I am much more enlightened now than I was earlier.
Yeah. Thank you for your talk.
Thank
you.
Thank you
As
for
well
doing
as the
before the
committee.
decorations.
Yeah,
You made us look good tonight, thank you.
you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Agenda item 12, the class of 2017 exit survey with high school principal, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Wolf may chime in here. We'll probably have to remind him to use a microphone like always, so.
Let me interject too. The two directors to my left had talked with a Life Track Services agent at a
Yep.
school board convention. And so we had the survey conducted, and now Mr. Johnson's going to share results of the class of 2017.
You thought I would forget the shout out, huh? So yeah, for the first time we had an outside service do a senior exit survey. We do a pretty basic exit survey with our students, at least the 3 years that three graduating classes that I've been a part of. So this was the first time we had another service do it, coordinate the data for us and kick that back, and we really enjoyed the data that it did provide. We've got a few follow-ups to do with them, try to make it better. So a lot of numbers will get thrown at you today, just in terms of 99 seniors took the survey. We had 107 that graduated from the high school, and then also the Cary Lane students who did not take the survey, unfortunately. In order to get them back, the deadline that they gave us,
Good
we didn't.
participation then.
Yeah, it was good. We called this class meeting one of the last days and had them all do it right there.
That's
That's
good.
really the only way to get a large number
Sure.
of kids to do it at one time. But we'll get 100% participation in the future, and then we also are working with them with LifeTrack to see what some follow-ups might be, because like I said, you're just going to see a lot of numbers today. And we'll kind of coordinate some of the different efforts at the high school that we're doing to meet that data and some of those things. So a quick snapshot of the class of 2017. Now, of the 107 that graduated, 99 took the survey, 67 females and 40 males. Now, I knew that was a big difference, but when you see that number, like when we look at the 63 females took the survey and 36 males, you're like, geez, almost 2-to-1 ratio there. That's or 3-to-1. That's alarming. Not alarming. It's just an interesting piece of data, I guess. Ethnicity, 87% currently in that class, 13% diversity. That's probably low compared to our district average. You're going to see that climb every year here, at least through the kids that are in this building. You're going to see that get closer to 20% by about a percentage or two every year, I think, if we kind of stay where we're at with those numbers, and then the different ethnicities that were options for the survey. Now, some interesting data here on the left-hand side in terms of breaking down the kids, the students, what they're going to do after high school. And you can see the numbers next to it. 38 students had said a 2-year school. The top one on there was NIAC, where 29 of our students at that time. We haven't followed up to see if they're enrolled or what they're currently doing, but those were what their plans were in May of last year. 58 said that they were going to go to a 4-year school, and Iowa State had the most with 13 of those. 5, there was another young man on the brink of deciding whether or not to go into the National Guard. We're going into the military, and then work or undecided. We kind of put into one category at the end there. And we'll get to kind of how that compares to the first 2 years that I was principal here, that I had that data to look at comparisons. And then we just took it a little bit further, and on our survey at school, this comes from our exit survey, not from the one that we're going over all this data with. 15 students were going into education in some capacity. And I think like 13 of those were teachers. That was our top medical field. A lot of different things, even a nurse. A nurse was one of our, you can see there was the 4th overall. So if you combine those two in the medical field, that would put the medical field as our top occupation. Ag business alone, not agricultural, just ag business, had 9 different students. That's pretty telling, and that's pretty common over the last couple of years. It's been one of our top very specific skill areas that kids are going into. And then business and finance world is 8. Otherwise, a lot of the kids, one question that I'd like to get a lot better at with our data is them being a little more specific on what they'd want to do or what they're going to do. Because a lot of interesting data comes from 3 or 4 years down the road, how many times they've changed their mind or how they've kind of went in different directions. That's a very popular thing to look at in terms of college and career readiness data. But that's the first time we've kind of chunked it up into different occupations, and I like what that brought out for us because it can lead us in some different directions with our class offering. So I'm excited to see what we might do. And I'll tell you at the top there, education, that's all 3 years that I've graduating classes, there's been double-digit kids going into education. We've got to open up some more things for them when we have them in terms of getting them prepared to be educators someday. And there's no better place to do that. So we've got some interesting things in the works for that. I broke the senior survey from LifeTrack down into 3 different areas: college and career readiness, participation in community, and culture and climate. I didn't list out the specific questions for sake of time, but you can kind of see the college and career readiness are all very similar questions. And one of the things that feedback that I gave to the survey company was one question was on future prep. You can see that's third under there. And the other one was, did programs meet your expectations? Very similar questions. I'm not sure that we can really look at what the kids were, the difference between that question in the student's mind. You can see that we're kind of in the high 80s for most of those percentages. The first question that was asked, these are in order as they were asked on the survey, was about higher ed. Did it prepare you for higher ed or the workplace? And we had 78%. Well, then we go down to the rest of the questions, and it talks about was it a quality education? Did it prep you for your future? That's 89% as opposed to 78. So we're somewhere around that 80 to 85% range in terms of what kids feel about how we're prepping them for life after high school.
Wouldn't that question be difficult though for a senior not knowing what to expect in higher education and work really without having
Yep.
real world experience?
Yeah, and I don't think I said that's kind of the feedback I gave them. I mean, it's not a specific enough question to say, what are we really after with that question? The good thing about this service is that we can alternate what questions we want to ask. We did the very basic survey this time. We now know the questions that we want to add and or eliminate to next year. Participation in community. I think this was a little bit, we needed more questions for this. There was a really interesting question about, do your classes or did your education prepare you for the real world? Now, we talk to our kids a lot about real world and relevance and those types of things, so I think that's kind of what they had in their mind, instead of, did this prep me for the real world that I may go into, which is, again, similar to the other questions. But I thought that it was interesting, 55% of our kids were average or the below average categories with that question. They didn't feel like, so about half of our kids feel like, yeah, I'm kind of getting a real world relevant experience, but I'm not really sure. So I thought that was an interesting, it's a question that I want to have more information about, but it also begs some pretty good discussion there. 89% of them are active, so that's above what our current percentage is at the high school. Now, numbers tend to trend upwards in high school as they go up and we get more clubs and they become upperclassmen, they will start to rise. It's also a testament to the efforts around of making sure that kids are informed about what we have. We keep adding different activities to do. These numbers should, district-wide, with the addition of soccer and some other clubs, they should rise somewhat. But it also, with, I think, what were we at, Mr. Wolf, 83% around there, as a entire high school, they're above that average. So that's a good thing, but it also shows us with those lower grades are bringing our average down a little bit, and we've got to make sure that we're paying attention to that. Did the extracurricular activities offered meet your needs? That was 92%. That was average or to the higher marks. And then culture and climate. You can see we're kind of, if you exclude the top one, which I'll talk about here specifically, we're pretty much right in the 85%. That they feel like teachers care, that they give a lot of effort, that overall they feel pretty good about what we do as a high school. The one with technology, I know those numbers are skewed. If these seniors would have got their MacBooks for their last year, that would be 100%, I bet, or close to it. But they were the ones that voiced all the concerns about going from 3 years or whatever of MacBooks to Chromebooks for 1 year. So I got a kick out of that too. I'm surprised it wasn't lower as much as they didn't like the Chromebooks, but it's a free computer. I mean, come on, kids. But I want to address the top one. The question reads, is there a culture of mutual respect at the high school? And a third of our students said they did not feel that, right? Of all the questions that were asked, of all the data that we got from this, that's the one that stuck out. And I'll reiterate that here in another slide because it also confirms some data that we got from our Iowa Youth Survey last year. When you send something that's that personal to staff and that kind of hits you in the heart a little bit, you want to make sure you back that up with some other stuff. That can't just be, here's 99 seniors in their last week of school, because they're going to take those 30 kids and say, well, there's all kinds of variables to this. Well, our Iowa Youth Survey, which does 4th, 8th, and 10th graders, said the same thing with those 10th graders. So very similar data, about 70% felt like we got some work to do in terms of mutual respect. Now, I've talked to a couple of seniors that graduated when we got this back that were still around, and they brought up an interesting point to me that might be that students are sitting back, seniors are calling out their fellow seniors and saying they don't see students giving teachers mutual respect. So that's an interesting way to look at how this data comes down. But regardless, a third of our kids are feeling like we've got work to do in that department. Kind of why you do these surveys, I guess, is to get that information. So college and career readiness, put the numbers back up there, but I wanted to also give you kind of a comparable data point to fit the classes of 2015 and 16. We were within 5% on either side of the amount of kids going to a 4-year, 2-year, and going to work. So we are pretty consistent with about 55 to 60% of our kids are going into, or start off going into a 4-year school. And then about 35 to 40 go into a 2-year school, and then the remainder have that third category. So that kind of gives us a little bit of comparison about how we prep our kids and what we're doing within our buildings. And then the bottom line is, as Mr. Wolf and I were talking as we prepared for this, but also in a lot of conversations that we're having with Mrs. Rottinghouse and the counseling department, we need to know more about our kids, and not just in terms of college and career readiness, but learning behaviors and profiles and some of those things. So we have a lot of different things happening in the district just to find out more about what our kids want and what they need. I should say what they need and then what they want, right? So what are we doing? We've had about 36 new classes, that's probably higher now, offered in the last 3 years to students. We've had some major programs, which will be referenced here a couple times, and you guys are all familiar with, that have been added over the last couple of years, with the idea, and that comes from conversations with this year's senior class and this year and last year's, and the class of 2017, when they were freshmen and sophomore, we did a lot of polling in their English classes on what needed to change at Charles City High School to better the experience here. It's what sparked Smart Lunch starting in those conversations, so that would be one program. You could probably put that up here as well in terms of responsibility. Growing partnership with NIAC, we've had a lot of really good conversations in the last couple of years, specifically around manufacturing within the community, to be that specific, but then also with increasing our concurrent offerings. We've even talked to them recently. The Iowa Big North team is working with NICC and NIAC to try to offer concurrent classes through that program. If we can get Iowa Big North to offer classes that are core classes and concurrent, we feel really good about what that program can evolve further into. The final year of I Have a Plan. If you have students in the high school or in middle school or you want to talk to them, don't ask them about I Have a Plan. They don't like it. It's part of the, now smiling over there, I could just ask you, couldn't I? But it's a mandatory thing from the state about college and career readiness. You have to have a screener. You have to do it. It's 0.25 of a graduation credit each year you do it, so it ends up being essential to graduating. Well, the state recently is going through some changes. There's new vendors out there that are frankly much better than what I Have a Plan, or we feel like we can use them better. I Have a Plan could be better, but I think the new softwares, and there's a free software from Iowa State that's really getting at the core of college and career readiness a little bit better. Our contract is up after this year, so we'll honor our contract through I Have a Plan this year, and then we'll look at a new vendor for next year, which could provide us a great tool here for this. We've talked about two things quite a bit. We want to make sure that these stay as conversation topics moving forward, and that's senior exit interviews to get more information about these survey questions and really hammer at some of these details a little bit further, and then also our freshman intake process. We've done some different things over the course of the year. We're not happy with it. We've got some really good ideas out there, but frankly, Mr. Wolf and counselors and I need to sit down and we need to figure out a better freshman intake process than what we've had, and we know that. Culture and climate, put the numbers back up there. I'm just going to be blunt with you. This is a huge focus area because of the Iowa Youth Survey data and because of this data. And because just the perceptual feel that you get at times where you just got to focus on something. Culture and climate and relationships with kids has been important. I think the ladies were a little modest about how the Orange Frog thing has kind of trickled down. You wouldn't catch me dead wearing these things because I hate how loose they are and they drive me nuts, but you see a lot of people wearing these. It's a small thing, but man, it's a reminder. The Orange Frog class, I did a sociology class where 7 young ladies and I read the Orange Frog and we talked about it. I still bring it up to them in the hallway all the time. I think we're on to something with the 7th grade class and how to do that and how that might trickle up into 8th grade and then into the high school as we go. Because it's not just be happy. It's psychology. There's a lot of learning to be done about the power in that. So I really feel like that's a good step in the right direction. The retreats, the freshman retreat last Friday, we are going to do an honor retreat with our staff. The same company's coming in on January 2nd to do some team building, culture and climate building. That morning we'll do some Orange Frog refreshers with the staff. We're going to start planning those tomorrow at our admin meeting to keep that work going forward. I'm excited about it. It's way out of my comfort zone, as it is a lot of people's, but it's made a dramatic impact on me as a leader, and I'm looking forward to keeping that up. We have a crazy amount of student leadership opportunities available right now. I've got them on 2 Post-it notes. Justin and I are actually working on putting a plan together to highlight those things over the next couple of months. Ed Thomas leadership, I'm going with the group to Clear Creek, Amana on Wednesday. Tyler Downing's taking a group to Iowa City. We've got 3 Northeast Iowa Conference leadership days. If there's leadership stuff out there for our kids, we're getting kids involved in it and we're taking them and bringing them back here to make a difference when they come back. Or make it happen. Make a difference this last year, sorry. Homeroom Cup 2018, just a way to culture build within our homerooms. You hear all the time about high school kids saying we never have any fun around here. We do like the rope pull and then we do the Comet Rodeo and that's it, and then homecoming. So we're trying to coordinate some more fun in homeroom to build that efficacy within there and to build that culture, and we're gonna get started with that after homecoming. By the way, if you have not seen what we're doing in homecoming, it's going to be the best homecoming we've ever had. There's no doubt about it. The list of stuff that we have that week is phenomenal. Nurtured Heart and CPI, which is kind of the focus there, was going to be more on the de-escalation part of CPI, which is the preventative stuff, not kind of the holds that we're talking about, but just to de-escalate conversations with students. We've got people trained in both of those that work with our staff, our classes and programs, and then Mr. Wolf had a great addition earlier today about the inclusion of our support staff in that honor retreat, but also kind of the moving around of what we've done and including them in some more pre-service stuff than we ever have. To say it's night and day difference between our support staff culture here in 1 year, that it's crazy. It's just been awesome. I'll give Mr. Wolf a shout out for organizing a lot of that stuff. Participation in community, you can see that our students are calling for more real-world opportunities, and we have a lot of efforts going in the right direction here. A lot of our programs, a lot of the way our teachers are thinking. Jim and Danae Lumberg are offering a food grid class. If you haven't seen that on Twitter, you haven't heard about what they're doing, it's really good stuff. Danae and Donna already teach a culinary science class. Mrs. McEnroy in art is looking to team up with another teacher to do some different interdisciplinary courses. If teachers are coming to me with those ideas, we're finding a way to make it happen, because those are, they're scheduling nightmares and some of those things, but they're really important to the future of those real world opportunities. The high-tech high training and the PBL focus that we continue to have. I talked to you a little bit further about standards-based grading, but we'll do that further, but how that gets us to more real world learning and assessment with our teachers, site visits, conferences. One of the staff additions, a 712 tag teacher, is going to have a lot of impact on students. She just emailed me as we were sitting back here to take one of her independent tag students on a tour of Iowa farms to look at productivity and some of those things. That's what this girl wants to focus on. She's a freshman. She has time and availability to do that. That's just a really good example of how that'll continue to grow. And then some of the other things. Another good addition by Mr. Wolf at the end, something that helps with culture and climate, but also participation, is having a musical every year instead of every other. And I tweeted out the other day about the new energy in the team that we have with the fine arts department. Yeah, it's legit. It's moving in the right direction, so it's fun to see that. Wrap up, I've talked 100 miles per hour like usual, but this is a lot of stuff, and I really wanted to highlight a couple of things. that are in red there, because we've really taken a lot of conversation about three things when we look at how we're moving forward as a high school. You have to balance your course options, the core classes, the CTE and the fine arts. Those are the staples. You have to provide that MTSS or the supports for those core subjects and those different things. But we've really built an impressive list of college credit and advanced placement opportunities for kids. Those are all listed, and I know I left a lot out, but I wanted to fit it all onto one slide. We even put in parentheses the number of AP students that we currently have. If you put that in context, 3 years ago we had 0, right?
Right.
And now we have, I didn't even add up the total, but it's over 100, or close to, it's over 100. It's a little over 100. That's big strides in a couple of years. Testament to investing in it. Teachers take a week-long training out of their summer to become AP certified. And it's also a balance, because there's a lot of things about AP out there that aren't popular with people. There's legitimate debate about AP offerings in school. We want to find a good balance. We don't want to overdo AP and stretch our kids so thin that we're getting 5 or 6 in an AP class. Right now we have AP Bio only has 6, but it's our first year and we're going to find our way through that. But if we can stay at 15 kids in an AP US History, that's about our parameter. Once we start to see those numbers get thinner, number one, those are tough on our other sections. Number two, that's showing not enough interest in that from our kids. The other good thing about that is the Iowa AP Online Academy. So if kids are really interested, there is another option. But 100 and some kids in AP in 3 years shows that the community and the board and the kids, they were calling for it. They were right. I mean, so I think we're in a good spot with that. We'll grow a few more classes and we'll see where we're at. We've offered the leadership class. We're very close to offering leadership credit. Mentoring class that is in the works still. CNA offering for the first time. Career and internship all down the road. And then the innovative learning opportunities that you're familiar with. We'll be in later this year to talk more about the project in Tiny House and about where that's at. We've had some huge developments in the last week with it. We're on the right track, but gonna have to get some money, fundraise a little bit, but it's all good. So, sorry, long time. What kind of questions do you have? This is this is like my favorite topic, so get excited about talking about this stuff.
It's enthralling too.
Yeah.
I've said 100 times that I love quantitative data, stuff that you can see in a reasonably black and white fashion, what works and what's not working. This is another opportunity to see those kinds of things and to put, a firm or a reasonably firm stamp that yes, we're going in the right direction, or let's, refocus and go the other way. There's so many things that it feels like you try and do, and the assessment of whether it's successful or not is so subjective that you talk to 2 people, yes, you talk to the next 5, no. Overall, it might be 90% yes, but you caught the wrong 5 you talked to, and it's all of a sudden this stuff is, for me, is what I really like to see. And will be interested to see, I hope that we have this opportunity, we continue to do this and see these numbers over the years and how that presentation, affects these things, stuff like that, it all comes together, and it's a really great way to see it, in my opinion.
Dr. Cox asked me a question earlier about, give it some time and to see how the Iowa Youth Survey the data might get better because of some of the efforts that you have. And we talk about mutual respect to some of those things. You want to see overnight changes, but you need to work with staff on those things, and it's been good to zero in on those and have that data, because that hits home.
I am so glad to see that we've done this, because, I think when we go to our school board conventions, that's one of those booths that I go to, and I zero in and talk to that guy an awful lot, because I think while we believe we're doing, a great job here, it's good to have this independent information, and I love the way you're responding to it. What have we learned? What are we going to do about it? And you're right on target with everything that you're doing, and it's gratifying to see that. When you said that other survey with the mutual respect, was that 4th, 8th, and 10th grade? That just seems puzzling about the eighth grade.
Well, I only zeroed in on the high school. So the high school, I think, was 68%, just like this one was,
Okay.
So last year, the seniors and sophomores felt the same way.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
yep.
But
Now,
you're,
you know-
as you said earlier, we're not sure which side of the equation they're not feeling the mutual respect.
No,
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, we
It's
don't have
true,
those
but
kinds
it's
of-
still respect, so
Yes.
it's still a number that's either way it's going.
exactly,
not
I agree
good.
with you,
Yeah, it's
Robin.
not good,
Yeah.
but
Oh, my gosh.
When I get the Iowa Youth Survey, I go right to that question every time. What?
There's somebody looking in the window
Just
here.
realized we have a goat.
Oh,
Oh, I thought you said there's a coat.
No, there's a,
I thought
it's
you said
somebody
a
to mow the
ghost.
grass.
I haven't been called a
Sorry, I
goat
just-
before, but I
was
know what the
a
acronym
little
stands for, so I'll take it.
this isn't the dog park out there that we're.
Shauna, is
it?
it?
No,
Shauna the
this
goat,
is
I'm
not
seeing.
the Waverly
Shauna.
Hill.
It's Shauna.
I assume the
We
answer would be
digress.
no,
Sorry,
but
John.
there is no additional follow-up with that same set of students, right?
No, and that's one of the problems we have with any of our senior,
Yeah.
that's why
Doesn't
we're
this-
looking at the interview process.
Yeah, any way to catch up to them next May or the year after again?
No, what we're thinking about is to give the survey in April, get the results back
Oh,
in May, have interviews based on the results, and then go in that direction.
Isn't there,
Um,
Lorraine, though, when we talk to some of these people, they do follow-up surveys later on, don't they?
They do,
thought I had
post-high
read
school.
that.
And,
Yeah.
and see, the thing about it is, I find it surprising that, about almost 80% of kids are heading to college. I think that's fabulous, I think that's wonderful, but I'd be very curious to find what that number is 2 years or 4 years out. And I hope that our kids finish college, we know a lot of kids may start college, but let's
And
keep
what
our
their
eye on the
answer
ball
to the
and finish.
preparedness level for
Well, that's
college and things are.
And Josh
what-
had referenced that,
Yeah.
that by
Yeah.
having that data, that lets us know how prepared we
Yeah.
have them for college, whether they're going into what they said they were gonna, I took it that you meant that as if they're staying in what they said they were gonna go to, or if they stay with the college, we've
Yep.
done a job.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And
that's kind of what I was looking at is, if there was some way we could talk to those kids in May of 18 to say, now that you've had a year of college, did we prepare you?
Yep.
Where do we need to do better? What do we need to do different? What would you have done different as a student?
Okay, so I'll respond to that because Pat Rottinghouse we've just purchased a screener to get in touch or to stay more connected with our graduates. What we would have to figure out is to give them a comparable or this survey again in that aspect. But she is working on software, purchasing that to track our graduates more than what we have. Because you don't, the universities will report out to that stuff. Like when our kids enroll in a university, they will notify us when that kid is no longer there.
Oh, okay.
They do track to that extent.
That's
We just
good.
haven't had any software to help us do that. And we have just enough kids where it's a little difficult to track down 100 to 125 kids, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're looking at how that might go, but still begs the question how this kind of survey or a very comparable set of questions could be asked and to get
Yes.
good responses from it, so, yeah.
Very good.
Love it.
Anything else?
Bravo.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, committee reports. Do we have any reports?
It's the
No
first
reports?
meeting of the
It's
month.
the first meeting of the month, so we
I
said
assume
we'd
there's
have
no
it on
reports.
there, but no reports.
No,
Okay.
we better get to work.
District goals for 2017-18.
So district goals have shifted, and now the state is really prescriptive with how you write them and in what area they encompass. So there is a long-range goal in pre-K 6 reading literacy specified by Iowa Code. You can see it listed. By the year 2021, 85% of students in grades K through 4 will be at or above benchmark on the FAST assessment. Iowa Code also prescribes an annual reading goal that aligns with the long-range goal and is based on current reading literacy data. And it reads, in the spring of 2017, 66% of students in grades K through 4 were at or above benchmark on the FAST assessment. By the spring of 2018, we will increase that percentage to 80%. Mrs. DeVore takes care of curriculum matters for the district, so if you have additional questions, she's here to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask that they be adopted as presented.
Is that increase in the K through 4 FAST assessment attainable? Seems high.
It's very doable. We did it last year. I think one of the things, if you take a look at K3 data last year, we had an 11.9% increase from our fall testing to our spring testing. So we do think that that's a very manageable goal. It is lofty, but that's absolutely where we want to be.
Okay,
Wow,
thank you.
great.
Thank you for that.
Very good.
Okay, I move to adopt the aforementioned goals as presented.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the district goals for 17-18 as presented. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
Yes,
Bakehomer?
Yes.
Winterick?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 15, West Parking Lot Project. Looks like we're completing it and need to have a final acceptance.
Just want to say that it's awesome.
Absolutely.
It's like, it fits so well and is laid out so well that you don't realize it was not initially there, which I think is the best compliment any type of project like that can get. So thank you, Dr. Cox, for you and Jerry, Chair McCarthy, for your work on that project and making it just seamless.
Very nice.
Motion to approve the middle school west parking lot project, change order 1, final acceptance of the project, and authorize payment of retainage to be distributed in 30 days as recommended.
And I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and finish the paperwork for the West Parking Lot Project as was said in the motion. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Frisbee?
yes,
Bakehomer?
Yes.
Winterick?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 16, letter of understanding and contract revision. Dr. Cox.
So fifth grade moved from the elementary to the middle school. There had been a separate middle school extra duty stipend and elementary band extra duty stipend. Because there is no elementary band, there's no elementary band extra duty to be performed, and the board rescinded that contract at the last board meeting. I've gone back and put together a letter of understanding between the affected teacher, the association, and the board that says neither side last spring asked to make any revisions to the middle school extra duty stipend. We'll go ahead and issue the elementary for one more year, so 2017-18 only, and give both sides ample time to revisit that issue before negotiations next winter/spring.
Motion to approve the letter of understanding with Charles City Community School District Education Association as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the letter of understanding with the Education Association as presented. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Bakehomer?
Yes.
Winterick?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
yes,
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Agenda item 17, the SiAC appointments.
You see quite a few names there in front of you and a couple of open slots. So we are still looking for 2 parents, preferably 2 male parents, so 2 dads in the district who would like to serve on the School Improvement Advisory Committee. And that's because almost every new appointee is a female, and we are obligated to strive for gender balance on that. So on the 25th, on the school board appointments, the recommendation will be for 2 males to be appointed from the school board to help with that gender balance as well.
I'll
And
make
Fallon, as our student, as our student board member, would be recommended to serve on this committee.
Make a motion to accept the SiAC nominees as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the SiAC nominees as presented. Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Winterick?
Abstain.
Walker,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes,
Maycumber.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes. Motion carried 4-0 with one abstention.
And the reason for my abstention is because this is my last official business board meeting, and I have volunteered, you're not gonna get rid of me that easily. I'm going to be a part of SiAC, and so I am a community member.
Excellent.
Thank you, Lorraine. Financial report for August of 17.
We received our EMC safety dividend again this year of $24,845, which was very helpful in our management fund. You have cash balance analysis in October. You should receive your first month of the revenue and expense analysis.
Motion to accept the August 2017 financial reports as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the August 17 financial reports. Roll call vote, please.
Walker?
Yes.
Frisbee?
yes,
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wintering?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes. Motion carried 5-0.
I see that.
Agenda item 19, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. Roll call vote, please.
Frisbee?
Yes,
Maycumber?
Yes.
Wintering?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes, motion carried 5-0. Correspondence and miscellaneous.
There's a letter from the Chief Administrator of Central Rivers AEA congratulating Charles City. The average growth on that assessment that Mrs. DeVore just referenced a minute ago across the state was 2%. We grew 12%. So that's a strong commendation on the work of
Very good.
our elementary staff.
Look forward to another one of those letters next year then.
Agenda item 21, important upcoming dates.
Again, tomorrow, September 12th, school board election. Polls open at noon and close at 8. Homecoming week, 18th to the 22nd. The Excellence in Education Booster Club Performing Arts Hall of Fame induction on Saturday, the 23rd. Our next board meeting is 6:30 right here, 2 weeks from now. There will be a social at 6 o'clock for Fallon and for the other new board members.
Okay. No other business, we will adjourn.
Exciting.